And I know there's a lot of nonsense, a lot of rubbish, a lot of time-wasting material on Instagram. But let me just frame this. It's as much about storytelling as it is about video. Now, this is just a little tip here. This is something that's taken me years, maybe to develop, or at least it took me years to realize. This idea of video telling, it's so simple in my mind. It's an everyday human act. It's the way that we interact with video narratives and put them into conversation. And yet I know for a fact that nobody gets it unless I show them. They'll say, "What do you mean?" And I say, "Shall I show you?" Let me just frame this. It's as much about storytelling as it is about video. Or I think, you know that if you're meeting a friend, let's say, and you're having a coffee or you're having breakfast, you're having a beer, maybe it's a family member, maybe you're in a kitchen, maybe you're in a staff room. It doesn't matter where you are, but maybe a video comes into conversation. When I say a video, I mean something short form, like a TV advert or a nature clip or a piece of shocking news footage. Basically, it's taking short videos and telling the stories, putting those video narratives into words in conversational storytelling, you see? How does this sound so far? Does it make sense? And I'm not going to imply for 1 second, not for 1 second, that you don't know how to tell stories, but it is a really good way just to kind of practice them and all get on the same page. Now, let me just stop explaining and start demonstrating with a story. This is nice. This is a nice big group, isn't it, David?
Yeah, it's great.
Yes.
You're popular.
There's this, is anybody here on Instagram or TikTok?
No.
Put up your hands if you're on it for the sharing of videos. If you post videos every now and again, just Grant there. Put up your hands if you're on it for the scrolling. For the scrollers amongst us, how many hours of scrolling or minutes of scrolling do you do per day? More or less.
Scrolling.
I think we try to limit it. Yeah.
David said 40 minutes per day. Grant says, is that hours or minutes, Grant? 1 hour per day. Now, I'm on Instagram quite often. My excuse is it's for work. And I know there's a lot of nonsense, a lot of rubbish, a lot of time-wasting material on Instagram. But every now and again, you just see something that is worthy of retelling. You know, there's this one I came across a few months ago, and it starts with this close-up of a little girl. And this little girl she's not happy. She's crying. She's crying her little eyes out and she's sobbing away. But the strange thing is while this little girl's crying, her parents, who you can't see, they're out of the shot, they seem to be laughing. We don't know if they're laughing at her expense or what's going on here, but we can just see that there's a fish tank. In the background, there's this fish tank. We can't see any more than that. We don't really know what the context is. This could be an aquarium. It could be in the zoo. It could even be a pet shop or a restaurant, a fish serving restaurant. We don't know. We can't see enough. All we can see is this little sobbing girl crying with her parents laughing in the background and this fish tank. And then the camera moves away a little bit and we can see what's going on and we can see what's happened. You see, this little girl, she had a dummy. A dummy is a British word, isn't it? The American word is pacifier, right? And her dummy, she's dropped her dummy, you see, and the dummy has landed in the fish tank. And now some thieving fish has taken up the dummy, is now swimming around with this baby's dummy in its mouth going. And as adults, we intuitively know there's something inherently funny about this, isn't there? A fish sucking a baby's dummy. It's incongruous, that it's out of place. And this is why the parents are laughing. But the poor little girl, she's not old enough yet to appreciate what incongruity is. And all she can see is the terrible, terrible injustice in this situation, which is a fish that's stolen her dummy. And that's the end of the story. So yeah, that is an important part that I almost forgot. That after the video telling, there is the video viewing. So you actually, the whole experience when it's in a sort of classroom approached way is it's a very quite an interesting experience for the listener to hear the story first, to visualize it, and then to see the moving images, the visual narrative, the audio for yourself. And I will guarantee you that for everybody, what you saw was different to the way that you expected. Am I right? So that was it. That was video telling. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is something that we used to do a lot. We used to do a lot. I sometimes think that the golden age of video telling, maybe it's two golden ages. The first one was during the golden age of TV advertising, because adverts, you know, or rather advertisers, what their kind of goal was to do was to create an advert that would find itself into the culture of the target audience. You know, you probably remember that before the days of YouTube, if it was an advert that made you laugh, made you smile, an advert you thought was clever or innovative or annoying, you might find yourself putting it into words and telling it to a friend. And that's exactly what the advertisers wanted. That was how an advert would go viral in the days before online sharing. The second golden era of video telling was when the world was introduced to YouTube. And YouTube was short form, and it gave rise to just all this new content, all these new kinds of stories, which were under 10 minutes. 10 minutes was the maximum length of the video, but most videos were just seconds or minutes. Remember the sneezing baby panda, for example? And you would have to put these narratives into words because we didn't yet have these. And you know the story, not the story, the song, video killed the radio star. Video killed the radio star.
Yeah.
Well, similarly, that you could say that mobile phones killed the video telling star. Because what do you do now if a video comes into conversation? What do you do? Well, people, they take out their phones, they turn up the volume, and they thrust it into their conversation partner's face. And we all do it, and it's very rude, and it's very annoying as well when the volume's up on a public place. But most importantly, it kills that human connection. You're pouring a fire on a story. And so next time this happens to you, what you've got to say to your friend or whoever to say, put your mobile phone away and tell me this video in the good old fashioned video telling way. So let me tell you another one. In fact, this one is a Halloween. This is especially for Halloween. This is a terrifying Halloween tale. Quite terrifying. There's this family man, and he's sitting on his own at the table in his kitchen, enjoying a bowl of soup. We don't know what kind of soup it is, but it doesn't matter. Now, he's just enjoying this bowl of soup, this hungry man, and from behind him, his wife appears. Nothing scary about that under normal circumstances. She bends down behind him and she puts her hand on his left shoulder. And she moves over, and in her right hand, she shows to him her mobile phone. And there's something on this phone. We never see what it is. Maybe it's a video, maybe it's an image, maybe it's a meme, maybe it's some family photograph just being shared in the group WhatsApp chat. We just don't know. But whatever it is, this man and his wife, they think it's very funny, and they both laugh. You see? So the woman then walks away, and she walks to the other side of the room. We can see her sort of disappearing into the background, but her hand stays where it was on this man's shoulder. And what's quite incredible is you can see this man who was a moment ago just laughing at whatever it was that his wife showed him, going, suddenly, gradually realizing that his wife's hand is still there, despite the fact that she's over there. And his face starts, you can see him questioning it. He's going, is that still her hand? Or is it something else? And gradually his face turns to sort of terror. He turns around just as the hand starts to sort of tap out a rhythm, crawl around a bit like a sort of insect, maybe a sort of, I don't know, a bug. And he screams, and he jumps up. And you'll never guess what he sees. Who wants to guess what he sees?
One of his children.
One of his children, says David.
That's what
One
I
of his children, one of his terrifying children.
His
Any other
mother-in-law.
ideas?
His mother-in-law.
Now, would you say what's more terrifying? One of your children or your mother-in-law?
His mother-in-law. Okay,
His
yeah.
brother-in-law. So which is more terrifying? One of your children, your mother-in-law, or your brother-in-law? Right. Now, this is just a little tip here. This is something that's taken me years, maybe to develop, or at least it took me years to realize that if you're telling a story and if you're asking questions, I've noticed that the teachers I work with on my courses, they panic. They panic, A, if they don't get the answers they're expecting, and they also panic if one of the students gives back the right answer. They panic if they get the right answers. They go, oh, yeah, you got the right answer. You spoilt it all. Now, the student only knows if they guess the right answer if you tell them. And the reason I'm saying this is that one of you may have guessed correctly. I'm not saying you did, but one of you may have done so. But did I confirm it? No, I didn't. I kept the mystery alive, I hope. Now, that's a tiniest tip, but it's one that is so valuable. And if you get something that's so weird back, you have to take the yes and rule, which you'll know from David's course, and find a way to incorporate it into the story. And I think that's one of the great things about studying drama for teachers. I'm a huge fan. Here's the man. Here's the soup. There he is in his kitchen. Wait for the horror. Are you ready?
Yes.
Can you hear it again?
Yes.
You want it more? You want it more? No! Oh my God!
He wasn't happy about that, was he? Let me give you just a few pieces of standard video telling, general storytelling advice. And video telling works especially well for this. You want, when you're telling a video, what you want your listener to do, especially of the types of video that we're working with today, is to be able to visualize. Be able to visualize from as early as possible. You know, video telling, storytelling is about making things easy for your listener. It's about not making things difficult. You want to keep their attention. You want to hold it. And the sooner you can allow them to visualize, the better. It's doing this, it's doing them a service. And it's doing yourself, making things easier for you. As teachers, we know what it's like if we lose our students' attention. And good storytelling is a careful consideration about how to keep it. And when you can let your listeners visualize as early as possible, that's great. The second piece of advice is to keep it simple. You know, don't provide too much information. I think that when we let students visualize, that doesn't mean visualize everything. We don't want to inundate them with details which are not necessary to the story. You know, the story can be stripped back to bare essentials. And we don't want to include things that are not going to be important. You know, I'm just thinking of some of the things I could have included, but those were two quite simple stories, quite simple videos. I mean, I didn't tell you what kind of soup that man was eating, did I? I didn't tell you where they were from, which wasn't important to the story. I didn't tell you the verbal exchange between the husband and his wife, because these are not things that are important to the story. And the final piece of information, just again to stick to the rule of threes, is try and find your meaning. So the meaning in the first video about was just my sort of this comical situation of incongruity that an experienced human being can appreciate, but a child cannot. That was my sort of my reading of it. My second one was just a bit of a silly one to turn this prank into a sort of horror story, making it thematic. And my third one was just to appreciate the beauty. And I don't think it should be more complicated than that. I think if you're telling a story, sharing a video because you think it's funny, that's as good a reason for any.
Can I
But
ask
do,
you-
yes, please, Maria.
Sorry, I need to understand that because on one side, when you were telling us the stories before the videos, I enjoyed very much you telling the stories. That almost watching the videos was maybe less engaging than you're telling a story. You know what I mean? I mean, it was nice to listen to you talking about the lions, and so my question is. When do we want to use in this way the video telling the story before watching the video? Is it because we want to create again suspense because we want to imagine it as a horror story, but then we want to take that away that's not very clear to me. In this context, the purpose of telling the story first and then watching the video, because obviously normally when you teaching English as a second language, you would do possibly the other way around because you want the kids to be able to visualize the story first and then you use the language that they don't know. But in this case, I see it used in the opposite way, and it's intriguing, but I don't quite understand how would you, when and why would you use it like that?
It's a
Sorry.
good question. And there's actually, you know, I could start going off on one right now and give you not just one reason, but 10. But I'm not going to do that. I'll just give you what I think right now is the most relevant reason for doing so, and maybe how this has evolved. As a teacher and as a storyteller, I've been interested for many, many years about ways to help students practice their own storytelling. And over the years, it's become apparent to me how difficult it is to get your students, to get your trainees, whether we're talking young people or grown-up people like ourselves, it's notoriously difficult to get people to find their own story-worthy experiences on demand in a structured way and tell them there so we can all work on them. And what I found here is that when we start with a video, a very short video with a strong narrative like the ones we've seen, we're starting with a shared experience. And students can then, they've got no excuse for not having a story to work on. And this allows us as teachers to get a story from every student in the class. And for me, this is really important. I don't know if you've ever been involved in speaking exams like the IELTS or the Cambridge exams. As part of the speaking, they have a prompt. They usually use an image, and they get students to use that image as a springboard for whatever it is they're going to say. This is very similar. There's a very good reason for using an image. The examiners know, or the examiners are starting with this shared experience, and they can, if they're going to talk about this image, they can then assess or the candidate's performance accordingly. And this is very similar. You know, if a student was to talk about an experience, create a story, but they're not telling the story particularly well, you could get completely lost as a teacher. Yet the fact that we're starting with this shared experience allows us to all kind of really work with it and assess it accordingly. When I say assess, I mean in the most broad sense of the word. How does that sound for starters? Does that answer your question? Be honest.
It does partially. It does. I am interested to know if you use it also the other way around. So if video can be a starting point for the children or the adults or whoever else to talk, or would it take too much of the non-told story away from, because it's too much, it's too visual. So perhaps, I don't know.
No, right. That's a great way. That's a great way into where we're going next. I do have what I call the video telling framework. And what we're really doing is that, first of all, there's what I call the video or the story priming. We haven't done that yet, but then after that, we go into the teacher-led storytelling. Now, we've done 3 instances of teacher-led storytelling, in which I told 3 stories, each based on a video. The third part is what I refer to as the moment of comparison. And that's when everybody gets to see the actual video that the teacher put into words and compares those images, that visual, that audio-visual narrative with the verbal one that they've already heard from their teacher. That's the third step. Then there's some kind of analysis or interpretation or discussion, issues that come out of the video, issues which come out of the story. There's possibility here for visual literacy. For example, you could, or there's also possibilities for assessing the teacher's story. Was the video how you expected it to be? What's the reason for these lions doing what they did? Is the teacher's interpretation of the video similar to yours? So lots of discussion here. Then the fifth one is when the teacher, you give your students a copy of the script that you prepared before you told the story, which is very, very important. We're moving on to that right now, because the secret to successful storytelling is scripting. And finally, and this is the absolute, without any form of doubt whatsoever, the most important part of the framework is the students as video tellers. The students have to take that script, they have to work with another video, a different video, one with a thematic connection. They've got to prepare to tell the story using that script as a model, and then it's student-led video telling. And when they do this, they're practicing storytelling skills and ability. So this really has at its very heart, the answer to that question, Maria, is you are teaching storytelling, the most fundamental, without any doubt in my mind, function of language. So I hope I've convinced you. And Ananda's got a question. Yes, Ananda.
Yeah. So the reason you're giving them a script is what you said earlier, is that you want each and every child to have some sort of a framework to work within, because I teach drama, and happens to me also very often that I could just tell them, hey, come up with a story of 2 dogs walking down the street. But it's very difficult for all children to come up with. So the script is for that, right? To make sure that they all have a base to start working with, right?
Yeah, I mean, this script is the text. And what we're doing here as language teachers, we use texts for many, many different reasons. One of them is as a source of language input. And the text has all sorts of great language features and grammar. Primarily, it's a spoken text. That's what differentiates a script from other kinds of texts. And in language teaching, we've had a great paradox for over 100 years. We've been trying to teach primarily speaking. We put a lot of importance on the speaking, and we've been trying to do so with written genres of texts. Now, the teacher, we're all great sources of language input in the classroom, but when you've got a script, what you have is a documentation of that spoken story. And that's why I put attach so much importance to scripting. And that's what we're about to do next. Let me show you, I mentioned before the secret to storytelling success. Do you remember what it was? I said, and this is open to debate, my claim is it's all about preparation. But in fact, you could say, well, actually, Jamie, it's about 2 things. It's not just about preparation, but it's also about reflection. And I would say, yes, you're absolutely right. This is what I call the storyteller's cycle. So we spend some time to plan your story. And by the way, if it's conversational story, it just comes up in conversation. This is absolutely different. This is more sort of classroom storytelling. This is more performance-based storytelling. This is you, if you specifically want to make use of a story for an activity, I would always suggest that you take some time to plan it first. And I'm going to give you just 5 or 10 minutes to plan a story that you're all going to tell, all right? So plan to tell the story, then you're all going to tell your story, and then you're going to spend a couple of minutes just reflect according to your interlocutor's feedback. Just for this next part, everybody, you're going to be paired up. And again, you've got exactly 10 minutes to listen to your storyteller, provide some feedback, anything that you thought they did very well, any advice for how they could do it differently, and then change roles. This will take 10 minutes.
I'm going to open all the rooms, and here we go.
I heard 2 great stories. That was quite special. How did everyone else get on?
Yeah, it was okay.
Well, we didn't have the time to tell the story to each other, Karen and I. I told a story, but then we were moved out, so we didn't have the time to.
Oh, sorry about that. I should have, you know, if I could take the clock back, I would have said, make sure you time 5 minutes per person. You've only got 5 minutes to tell your story, and be very strict. I didn't do that. Apologies. Also, another thing I didn't do but should have done is to maybe define what I meant by scripting, because scripting can be something we do with pen on paper, but really scripting can also just be something we do here. And yes, scripting can just be a consideration of the basic structure of the story you're going to tell. For some storytellers, performance storytellers, friends of mine, they say their scripts exist only in their minds, in their heads. Now, I've never been that kind of scripter as a language teacher. I like to have a documentation of the story I tell, not just for myself, but for my students. Now, just before we go, I've got another 5 minutes or even 10 minutes. If anybody wants to tell their story live to everybody else after having received a bit of feedback, what do you think, David?
Yeah, I think so. The group I was in, we ended up combining 2 groups because of various people leaving. But I actually heard 3 different stories in my group, luckily enough. So I know that there are 3 people out there at least who've got a story to tell.
Well, Karen, I mean, would you like to tell your story now? You'll have to be very brave, but I think we would all respect that. And
yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, no problems.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you. Let's have your story then, Karen.
Okay, it's a beautiful winter's day in a park in England, and there is a dog walker walking his 3 dogs, except one dog has decided to jump into a pond, swim across it, and to take a stick. And he's grabbed the stick, and now he's got the stick in his mouth, and he's doggy paddling as fast as he can, but he's not going anywhere. The dog owner is screaming, "Badge, Badge, let go, Badge." The dog is not listening. Grit determination. He's paddling, but he's not going anywhere. And finally, the screen shoots to the owner's trousers, which are soaking wet. He eventually has to get into the water to save the dog, because the dog is not letting go of the stick, which is trapped in the brambles.
That's funny.
So thank you. The meaning for the story for me was grit and determination. It's a very cute dog.
Well done, Karen. That was you. It's been a pleasure I've heard 3 of you, and you've all been particularly strong. You know, you had a very lovely way of setting the scene. There was, just as we said, there was just the right amount of information. You described the scene, and if there was one little piece of constructive feedback I'd give you there, Karen, it'd be a tiny detail. I'm going to suspect that you wanted to do this, but maybe just you didn't, would be a key line, because you described this dog and it's furious dogling paddling, and it's got a stick in its mouth, and it's furiously dogling paddling. The thing you see, the problem is, and this is what I'm talking about, an explicit statement of the problem. The thing is that the branch, the stick that the dog's got in its mouth is still attached to the tree.
Yeah.
Do you see? And I think most of us kind of worked that out by the end, but that tiny detail, bam, in the middle, would be quite an important part of the story. I think you meant to do that. Am I right?
Yes, I did.
I knew you did.
And I think I went back on it and tried to then say at the end and still,
Yeah.
In that case, you get top marks for not having done what people do, myself included sometimes, which say, "Oh no, I've messed this story up. What I should have said." You brought it in and you blended it in, and it makes the story even stronger. So a double clapping for that. Thank you, Brent. Well done. Brilliant.
I've just put into the chat Jamie's website link. Do you want to say something briefly, Jamie, about what your website is all about and your course?
Yes. So what we've done today is basically a miniature. Usually I do it usually this workshop is a 90-minute workshop. But we've reduced it down to an hour today, and I still think it's worked rather well. But usually the workshop itself is usually 90 minutes, and it's part of a course that I do. And actually, David, down there, if you click on video course, this is my video course, and the video course consists of two smaller standalone courses. The first one, which we've actually just started, these courses go on sort of loop. We do one, we do the other, go back to the first one, we do the other one. They are standalone courses, but they combine to create the LessonStream video course. So if you go down a bit, David, past taking video apart, video telling, a story-based approach to video, that's the one that we've done today. Now, if you could go back to the homepage, David.
Yeah.
And whatever you do today, I would go to this site and just click on that little button to get my free ebook. The ebook is titled 7 Ways to Curiosify Your Students. My thing is curiosity and story. I think stories and curiosity are a beautiful marriage, you see. And so once you get my ebook, you'll also get my newsletter, my weekly newsletter that tells you where I'm going to be, usually share some ideas for using story and image and video with your students. And if you're interested in joining my course, let me know. And I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse, okay? Just let me know. Just say, Jamie, I'm interested in your course. Tell me about this special offer you'd like to give me, and I'll tell you there. I don't want to give you any hard sale or anything like that, because that's not what this is about. But it would, having said that, it would be a pleasure to work with you. The course works as a community, very similar to this one, and it's driven by
community. And I've also
just
taken the liberty of visiting your lesson plan page, because this is something else that Jamie has. And are all these linked to one or two particular videos, I think, and then they have lesson plans, and they also have often a PDF or a PowerPoint kind of thing to show the students.
They do. And if we look at Wendy's favorite chair and teeth, and if you scroll down a little bit, and if we go back out of that, back to the lesson plans, David, and just so Wendy's favorite chair and teeth, also giraffe 1, human 0, these all make use of videos of the type we've been using today, and the lesson plans fit the 6-step framework that we went through. Although it's very implicit, I don't actually mention it in the lesson plans themselves. I just provide extensive notes for teachers.
Well, can I give a big thanks to Jamie Keddie for everything that he's done today. He's really succinctly outlined and demonstrated his own approach to storytelling. And I must say, in the group that I was in, I heard 3 really terrific stories. So, you know, it just goes to show we can all do that, but also how effective it is to take those already sometimes they're edited stories, sometimes they're edited from real life, sometimes they're fictional, but they all work as stories. And I think that's a really good shortcut for teachers to have.
Yeah, thank you, David. And I just have to say how much I appreciate you. David and I have worked together for longer, maybe 15 years.
Could
Is that
be.
even possible? And I've learned a lot from David. It really is true when I say that. Having watched David and taken part in his workshops, I've really learned a lot from you. And I wouldn't even be surprised if some of you can see in what we've been doing today, some of the ideas that you've heard from David, because that's how it all works. So thank you, David. And thank you to all you great storytellers here. This is a little baby round of applause for you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any sort of final questions or comments before we go? You can either say something or put it in the chat, but feel free to speak.
Just wanted to say thank you, really, because I have never come across this sort of storytelling before, and it's kindled my curiosity, and I'm definitely going to look through the course and everything. And it's every time I manage to participate in this kind of Zooms calls, they're really they're amazing. They're full of things that I want to do afterwards. So thank you to David, and thank you to you.
Thank you so much, Maria. Lovely to hear that. Lovely to meet you today.